And hello there, and welcome back. We're going to wrap up our session. What a great day's conversation we had. Resham joins me now. Thank you so much for being with us, and thanks for all your great work today. As always, bring us up to date with the highlights for you.
Well, it's, as ever, absolutely been my pleasure to be here at the ABLF City, and I had 3 spectacular speakers, but all so different in their scope and their range and their work. I had Sabyasachi Mukherjee, who is the world-renowned Indian designer, and really excited.
He was so great, and you know, you elaborated so well with him on just his passion in terms of his social enterprise and all that he's doing. I mean, well done. I really loved that interview. Tell us more about it.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, I loved it too. He's just absolutely the go-to name for, you know, people around the world, especially someone like him. He's designed for Priyanka Chopra and Deepika Padukone, and just such incredible work there. And he's just signed a big deal to have his clothes at Bergdorf, which is incredible, just to feel as an Indian that, you know, our heritage, our clothes of our ethnicity are going to be shown next to these top designers. Is just amazing. But he spoke at length about his passion for sustainable fashion, that you should want to wear the same clothes again and again, about how he's opened up his fashion and his brand to democracy. You know, you might feel you don't have the funds or the confidence to go into a designer store, but actually he now does his fashion shows on Instagram. So anyone, anywhere in the world, as long as they have access to Instagram, can actually have access to his high-end fashion. And then some really interesting stuff about his collaborations and his partnerships, including, and if you didn't get to see the session, I would recommend you watch it, a little anecdote about how he ended up working and collaborating with Christian Louboutin, which was just a brilliant story.
No, and I did manage to watch some of that. I don't get to watch all of yours because I'm kind of busy preparing for mine. But I mean, he was also, I just found, just so joyous and humble as well, and just with this wonderful, you know, holistic and, you know, heartwarming attitude on life, basically.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm particularly interested to hear about your conversations around Plan International, because I got to speak to David Girling, who's a senior advisor at UNICEF. And that was absolutely fascinating. I mean, UNICEF have been asked to manage COVAX, the vaccination program to support low and middle income countries. And there are 82 countries that are financed by others. And UNICEF are aiming to do the biggest vaccine rollout in history, 2 billion COVID vaccinations this year. So just hearing about the logistical challenges, about how to make sure we get these life-saving vials from the warehouse right to in someone's arm in a country or a village where they might not necessarily have the supply chain that's necessary. But what was also really upsetting to hear, and you know, I do hope people will listen to this and then pick up the phones to support UNICEF and all the other NGOs, that pre-COVID 20 million children per year were going unvaccinated from normal diseases that we're so lucky to have access to, and 1/3 of countries have seen their childhood vaccination programs fall by 10% in the last year alone. So they're anticipating an extra 6,000 deaths a day of children around the world because the vaccinations have been disrupted by COVID.
Indeed, I think there were many frustrations that came through from many of our leaders who we spoke to this time, particularly something like that on the vaccines, but also, you know, AB, who I talked to also, you know, from looking also at, you know, the goals, of course, but also she said really looking at the gender inequality and the situation of girls. And I know I heard a little bit of that in your talk too with David, mentioning that and the concern for so many young children that are out of education. And while we can understand that they're out of the schools, you know, most children in the West, you know, are still being well educated at home, so to speak. But very sadly, for so many places in the emerging economies and indeed in the developing world, whereby this is possibly the worst thing that can happen, because when they are out of the schools, it can all come to such a halt, and it really, the damage that it will do in terms of pulling back. So there were some red flags, I think, that were brought up there without a doubt by AB. Great concerns about what's going on. Some of the work that they're doing, of course, she still managed to make sure that they can get it done. But a lot of concerns around what can happen. And indeed also she said that, you know, the sustainable development goals, that so many countries had done so much and it had taken so long to get there, that almost from 25 years going in one direction to less than 20 months back in the other direction, and a lot, sadly, damage been done. So there's a lot of work now to actually get stuck in and really get started again.
And you can imagine the resilience and the mental health strength that's required to see 20, 25 years worth of work kind of being reversed so quickly. Not to mention, of course, the challenges and the impact that has on the people, the most vulnerable people in this world, who are dying from preventable diseases. If only we could get them the vaccines or ensure that they had the supplies they needed, which in a way meant that my conversation with Ben Ampin, who is a managing director at Twitter for MENA, he kind of gave us a slightly more uplifting view about the positives to take away, because of course there are a lot of challenges that have been thrown up from COVID, but you know, the silver lining in a sense has been this focus. And he said at Twitter, it's been really led by Jack Dorsey, this push for resilience and mental health. And he spoke actually about resilient leadership, that it's important to understand and identify the areas you can control and work in those rather than focusing on all the things you can't. So he had lots to share about vulnerability, and he talked about VUCA, the volatility, uncertainty, complexity and ambiguity that all leaders are having to challenge and manage and mitigate. Whether you're in an NGO, whether you're in the government sector, whether you're in the private sector, that actually, you know, hopefully we will come out of this challenge to the other side and be stronger and better for it if we can ensure that we keep supporting the most vulnerable around the world.
Yeah, and I think there was that theme without a doubt in many of our speakers today too, which was, you know, it was very refreshing. In one sense, it was worrying, I suppose, in another too, but there is still a lot that we really need to do. The opening session we had, of course, with the regional CEO here from Society Generale here from Resham, really also looking at, I mean, I think the bank's involvement in sustainability and the absolute commitment to. So that, I think, you know, was great to hear, because of course we hear a lot from the NGOs, and we hear a lot from civil society talking about the need for sustainability and the need for building a better future, but to actually hear the investment, the guys with the money actually supporting this, you know, this was very encouraging too.
And I thought what was fascinating about your session was it's even though a lot of these big multinational corporations and banks do have huge sustainability programs and are really capable of driving change, it's often not publicized or talked about. So I thought that was really important. And then tying into what David from UNICEF said, that you know, UNICEF every year has a $600 million funding gap to make up. So actually these public-private partnerships or these NGO private partnerships are so vital, and we can't underestimate the importance of partnerships between governments, NGOs, private sectors, and even us as individuals to really pressure to keep change going in the right direction around sustainable development goals, around vaccine programs, and around supporting others through mental health and resilience issues.
Indeed, and Andreas, actually, he really also addressed what was going on. You know, we often think of the OECD too as a club, I suppose, of more developed countries, but I loved, you know, listening to him in terms of like bringing more countries into the fold, so to speak, and really looking at this now as a club of countries that use best practices to really help each other. Because I think one thing that we heard from many of our speakers too was, while there is a sense of, I suppose, isolation because of COVID-19, there's a desperate need, you know, to reach out and to open up and actually have more involvement with other countries, have more help, have more investment. And this is really, and also learn from other countries as well.
Oh, definitely. And I think that's where the space is for the, you know, that's why the ABLF City is so brilliant. I mean, look at the spread of speakers we've had today, and how you can spend half a day of your time and you get the full spectrum of speakers, you get the knowledge from the different areas. And I know for me personally that I'll go away from today and kind of think, actually, there are lots of different areas I can dip in and out of and make difference, make a change, make some positive impact. I mean, it's what we talked about when we talked about Twitter with Ben, when Sabyasachi talked about using Instagram, that actually we are so interconnected by social media platforms, and we so have this increased ability to collaborate, whether it's fashion, whether it's development, whether it's government policy, whether it's private sector, you know, financing. But there are so many different ways we can actually collaborate regardless of borders, regardless of working from home or in person. That I thought that was a really uplifting sentiment to take away from the sessions today and these brilliant days that we get to have with ABLF.
Indeed, yes, and Princess Moradun also just talking about the value of ABLF. I think that's what you just said too. She talked really about the work she's doing from the US, you know, with her foundation in terms of connecting with Africa, with the wider continent, with healthcare, with all of these great initiatives that are happening there. But also, I mean, I think it is great that, you know, we're delighted obviously to be part of ABLF, but the great platform that it is providing, and we're going to do this month after month right throughout the year. So already, and we could see from today too, Resham, so many questions coming in indeed from all over the world. I mean, it just expands every month, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I love it. I love seeing the questions popping up, and you see, you know, people listening from Egypt to India to New York to Dublin to, you know, you name it. And we've had questions from countries around the world. So it's great to see that not only is this a truly global conference, but that actually the engagement really is there. People aren't just turning up to listen in the background. They really care about what's being said, and the depth of the questions and the breadth coming from all sorts of angles. It's just really, really positive to see that, you know, despite the lockdown or the lockdown that we still have in the UK as it snows outside my window, that people are still really, really excited to have the chance to learn from these leaders and to up their knowledge and understand how they can be better leaders and better contributors to collaborative global efforts.
Indeed it is, and it's thanks to the technology that, you know, was now, talk about right time, that'll all help us to overcome this. So really, thank you so much for your contribution. It's great to do this dual moderation with you for this session, and I'm going to really look forward to March 9th is our next one.
Absolutely, me too. I can't wait to see you and our brilliant speakers there.
Now, of course, to all of you at home, thank you so much for being with us. As always, it's great for you to be engaged. We love to get your questions, and we'll have plenty more for you next month. The team is already very, very busy on getting some impressive speakers. And of course, if there are people you're interested to hear from too, be sure to connect with us and let us know. The networking lounge is still open, so if anybody wants to now begin to connect and see who's still around, please do that. Hashtag ABLF City, keep in touch with us. Drop us a note, let us know what's going on, stay connected, and until we see you on March 9th, from all of the team at ABLF, we wish you farewell for now, and we'll be back in touch very, very soon.